Pipeline Studio is about understanding your workflow and knowing when it's running smoothly. Reaction replaces understanding. When context is lost, perception becomes unstable. The system no longer understands why conditions are changing, only that they are. Without explanation, every signal is interpreted emotionally rather than structurally. Slowdown feels threatening, variation feels dangerous, delay feels like failure. This is where reaction replaces understanding. Instead of responding to causes, the system responds to sensations. Instead of diagnosing conditions, it manages anxiety. Work accelerates, urgency increases, pressure becomes the default posture. None of this restores clarity. In fact, it deepens confusion because reaction does not create explanation. It consumes attention without producing insight. As context erodes, the system begins to rely on perception alone. What feels slow is treated as broken. What feels uncertain is treated as risk. This changes behavior everywhere. Decisions are made faster, not better. Checks are added without knowing what they are checking for. Communication increases, but meaning does not. The system is busy but blind. People compensate instinctively. They add effort where understanding used to be. They add speed where explanation used to exist. This compensation creates the illusion of control. Things are moving, messages are being sent, work is happening, but nothing is being resolved. Reaction is expensive. It burns time without restoring alignment. It amplifies noise while starving signal. It trains the system to treat every deviation as a threat. Over time, this posture becomes normalized. The system forgets what it felt like to operate with shared explanation. Urgency becomes habitual. Pressure becomes familiar. This is how perception hardens. Instead of asking what changed, the system asks how fast it can respond. Instead of asking why something slowed, it asks who can be pushed. Context loss turns coordination into escalation. Every slowdown invites scrutiny. Every pause invites justification. Every delay must be defended. The system stops learning from its own signals. It starts fearing them. At this stage, reaction begins to generate the very instability it is trying to suppress. Speed introduces errors. Pressure collapses nuance. Urgency crowds out reflection. The system becomes reactive by design. What was once a diagnostic slowdown becomes a trigger. What was once information becomes accusation. This is the inflection point. A system operating on reaction alone cannot tell the difference between constraint and collapse. It treats both as emergencies. And because emergencies demand immediate action, explanation is perpetually deferred. Context loss deepens, reaction accelerates, the loop closes. This is why systems fail during periods of change, not stability. Not because change is inherently destructive, but because perception outruns understanding. Without context, perception becomes the loudest voice in the system, and perception under pressure is rarely accurate. Reaction replaces understanding when explanation is missing, and once that replacement occurs, restoring clarity becomes harder with every step forward. This is not because people are careless. It is because systems under pressure default to speed. Part 3 begins where this breaks, not with more reaction, but with the restoration of explanation. What makes this state persist is that reaction feels productive. Things are happening, people are moving, decisions are being made, but productivity without explanation does not restore control. It only masks uncertainty. The system feels busy instead of informed, active instead of aligned. And as long as activity substitutes for understanding, reaction will continue to crowd out the very context the system needs to recover, and the system drifts further from clarity. This concludes this session. Let what you've heard settle before continuing.